Thank you for watching the Anticipating and Managing Reasonable Adjustments in a Professional Placement Setting series. My name is Pam Moss and I'm a dyslexia specialist within disability and inclusion. There are 4 aims of the session today. Firstly, who is involved in preparing a student for placement? Secondly, why a student with a neurodiverse profile ought to prepare for placement. Thirdly, the benefits of preparing for placement for a student. And finally, how a student prepares for placement. So firstly, who is involved in supporting a student to prepare for placement? Well, there are 4 critical teams involved in supporting a student. Firstly, it's the student themselves, as well as disability and inclusion, also the faculty staff and the placement or provider. The responsibility of a student is to share their information and disclose whether they have got a disability or a neurodiverse profile to the disability and inclusion team. And also it is a student's responsibility to complete the reasonable adjustment placement plan. The responsibility of disability and inclusion is to create and disseminate an inclusion plan, and this is based on the evidence that a student shares with the disability and inclusion team. And on the inclusion plan, it will stipulate how to complete a reasonable adjustment placement plan. In terms of the faculty, the first instance, if a student has not undertook a placement before, then their role and responsibility is to support that student in identifying and recognising what challenges they may have and what support is available to them in terms of reasonable adjustments. And also it may be that a member of the faculty team liaise with the student and the provider regarding the requests for reasonable adjustment. In terms of the placement, it is important that the reasonable adjustment placement plan is shared with the placement so they can discuss and agree whether your requests are indeed reasonable or not. So why should a student prepare for placement? Well, firstly, it's to both recognise their challenges and identify strategies to manage their learning whilst in a placement setting. And by recognising both the strengths and individual potential challenges, and this could be in, for instance, reading speed or processing information or organisation skills, a student can anticipate how best they can manage the placement setting. In terms of identifying, this means that we're looking at your current strategies to manage your challenges, or it may be that you start introducing new strategies that work. You can start to practice implementing and acquiring these new techniques in preparation of the placement. And this approach helps to reduce any unnecessary worry or concerns whilst in placement. Now, in terms of preparation, it's important to record and disclose information. And by that, I mean that you're recording on the reasonable adjustment placement plan your requests for reasonable adjustments. And this enables you to take ownership of learning and consider the type of reasonable adjustments that you may require to support your learning need. And if it's the first time that a student has completed a reasonable adjustment placement plan, then it may require some support encouragement, identification of what may be reasonable in a placement setting. In terms of disclosing, it is important that a student shares and discloses that they have either a disability or a neurodiverse profile to a provider. If a provider is unaware that a student has a disability or a neurodiverse profile, then they will be able to proactively support a student. And secondly, by disclosing to the placement, they have the opportunity to discuss and agree that they're able to accommodate a student's need. I'd just like to go through a few examples of reasonable adjustment requests for different challenges, some for reading and writing or organisation challenges. It could be working memory or information processing challenges. It could be issues within the actual environment or communication challenges or attention and concentration. So firstly, reading and writing challenges. Well, it may be appropriate for a student to request access to procedures and policies before they start placement, and this enables a student to adopt a different learning style that suits them. So it could be creating flowcharts or diagrams, and this helps a student to familiarise themselves of particular procedures. Another request could be copies of pro formas, letters, reports, any templates of written documentations that a student is able to model the expected standards of written work, and this helps students again in terms of preparation. A particular challenge for an awful lot of students going into placement is the abbreviations that are often used in a placement situation, and if they're able to have access to a set of abbreviations similar to a glossary of terms, then this helps to reduce either misunderstandings or barriers to learning or communication challenges. It may be suitable in some situations to use voicemail as well as written emails to help a student to remember the task that they have to do. And voicemail is an alternative format to written emails. It may be that a student has some visual challenges, so maybe a placement could supply screen reading software that a student is used to using through the Disabled Students Allowance package, and also the opportunity to change background colour on PCs for visual challenges. Secondly, in terms of organisation, it would be helpful if a student would be able to use and share diaries for deadlines, prioritisation, and for a mentor in the early stages, support the development of prioritisation skills, or planning tasks. Also in terms of organisation, if a student is aware of what they will be doing throughout the day, a structured working day, then that is really helpful in order for them to become more automatic in what their expected tasks. And breaking down complex tasks into smaller chunks really helps a student to develop the skills and the sub-skills required to develop that actual skill. Thirdly, some students have challenges with working memory and information processing. So it could be that a student requests or asks for permission to record meetings or one-to-one sessions with their supervisor, but we also inform students that they have to gain permission from a provider in order to record any particular sessions. But this approach does help because a student could be overwhelmed, they could experience cognitive overload because it's a new situation, and being able to record a session or a meeting enables a student to listen back and take notes of the tasks that they have to complete. Another request could be allow plenty of time to read and complete tasks, and it also could be in a quiet room, or when somebody's got to read complex situations, noise cancelling headphones, things to help with working memory and information processing. Fourthly, in terms of the environment, students through the Disabled Students Allowance are quite often recommended assistive technology. So it's seeking permission of whether they can bring their own laptop in with the assistive technology already on the laptop, or access to particular assistive technology, and that would have to be discussed with the student themselves. Like I just previously said, noise cancelling headphones really are really effective for students with ADHD, as it reduces any distractions, taking them away from what they're actually supposed to be doing. And it's also maybe important that the provider considers any sensory sensitivity with the student, and that might require more discussion with the placement provider. And offering consistent routines and advance notice of any changes really helps a student with autism. In terms of communication, most students would prefer you to give them instructions one at a time, slowly and clearly, and also the opportunity to repeat that information if necessary, and also for you to check their understanding, that they've actually fully grasped what you've tried to explain to them, and maybe setting out and communicating clear guidelines for when decisions have to be made with any tasks that they have to achieve. In terms of attention and concentration, and although this is primarily for students with ADHD, it also can be part of some of the challenges for other neurodiverse profiles. So access to a quiet space away from distractions really does help if that's possible. Maybe a student could put a do not disturb sign on a door or on a desk when they're actually doing more intense tasks, so people are aware that please do not disturb them whilst they're concentrating. And finally, providing a clear overview of tasks and expectations really helps for most students. So now we're just going to explore the benefits for a student in terms of preparing for placement. And firstly, it does help them to focus on the challenges and identifying strategies that work for them, and this helps to focus attention, and then they're much more aware of what strategies they can put in place to manage their placement as well as their skill development. And by this, it helps them to develop a growth mindset, recognising that they may not quite have developed a particular skill as yet, but that doesn't mean to say they're never going to develop it. So it does help with focusing one's attention. Secondly, time. For students with a neurodiverse profile, just starting a placement and then being inundated with information, processes and procedures, it can create cognitive overload, as well as increasing anxiety. So preparation, or plenty of preparation beforehand, gives them time to practice either some new techniques, It allows them to become more patient with themselves if they don't get it the first time. And then they can also prepare to learn from feedback, identifying where they went wrong. And this helps to embrace new ways of working. But time is critical if students have working memory or speech processing challenges. So plenty of time to prepare really does build confidence for a student. Moving on to confidence, as a student is able to develop particular strategies or techniques, then this helps them to recognise that we're all good at some things and other things we have to work on. And this mindset allows us to change the way we think of ourselves, our challenges, our skills and our abilities, and helps to improve confidence in learning new techniques and new ways of working. And this in confidence helps to empower a student with a positive attitude, and then they're able to set reasonable goals for themselves, and enables one to focus on strengths and abilities. And then a student is empowered to take control of their own learning and responsibility for their own learning, developing autonomy and independence. Fifthly, a lot of the skills that a student will develop during this time are transferable skills. So the strategies that they put in place can be transferred to other placements. So they've acquired and mastered a particular skill, developing new skills every time they go into a new placement. And finally, adaptability. This approach helps students to develop that adaptability mindset through the different placements and providers and tasks and activities that they are exposed to. And then that helps them to develop their own invisible toolkit of strategies to solve problems that they may experience on placement without them feeling totally overwhelmed. And adaptability is one of the main things that most employers want. So this approach helps a student to become a great candidate for other jobs. So how does the student prepare? Okay, just a few tips and techniques. For a student, recognise and anticipate the potential challenges that may be impacted upon you while studying in a placement situation. Think about reading challenges, writing, memory, processing, could even be drug calculations. It could also include motivation, personal organisation, or verbal communication skills. So consider those particular challenges, and then complete your reasonable adjustment placement plan. If you would like a conversation about what kind of requests you may want to explore, then please feel free to get in touch with me or somebody in your department. Now, some of the strategies you can undertake is to do some background information about the placement to gain a bit of awareness of what you would be expected to do and your responsibility. Be familiar with the competency standards that you must demonstrate in placement, and within the competency standards, that's where you could maybe recognise some of the challenges that you may have, and then we can look at exploring what types of reasonable adjustments you could potentially request. So complete the RAP form with support from either the faculty or disability and inclusion. And you could also arrange to visit the placement to discuss the RAP requests. You could also request an induction pack, and this will help you to explore in advance some particular procedures or policies to just get familiar with that placement situation. I have added some additional resources in relation to ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia and autism. Now you may want to watch some of the videos to give you an idea of what type of reasonable adjustments that you may request. So do your own research, really think about your particular challenges and how they may impact, as well as some strategies or reasonable adjustments that you may want to request. So hopefully by watching this short presentation, you've recognised who's involved in preparing a student for placement, why a student should prepare, also the benefits of preparing, and how a student prepares for placement. Thank you for watching this short video, and if you would like further information about preparing for placement or completing the RAP, then please feel free to contact me on p.moss@chester.ac.uk or email studentservices@chester.ac.uk, and one of my colleagues will arrange to book an appointment so we can discuss any issues, concerns or thoughts about preparing for placement.